President Donald Trump cheated on his wife with a porn star just months after his child was born, and nobody cares at all. And and really, I don't even really care. But it's the very reason that we don't care, or the lack of reason why we don't care, is why I did this video. Because it's so interesting to me that this is sort of a big deal, or at least would have been a big deal years ago. But now it's not. No one's even talking about it. It barely got media attention. I mean, this is the kind of story that the media would normally latch onto. A very salacious story with some serious details about what happened between Donald Trump and this porn star. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to read some quotes that may gross some people out. Or maybe not. I think I stayed away from most of the gross stuff. But I'm going to read some quotes from Stormy Daniels, otherwise known as Stephanie Clifford, that had this affair with Donald Trump. And I'm going to read these quotes about her experience with him. And also, then I'm going to read through some tweets that I got off Twitter for some audience reaction to the story and whether people care or not. So let me just get to some of these details because it's it's funny, interesting, weird, whatever adjective you want to use. It's one of those. So here's the first quote here. Accusations of the pair's alleged sexual relationship were first raised by the Wall Street Journal, which also reported that Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, paid Daniels $130,000 1 month before the 2016 presidential election as a part of a non-disclosure agreement. So, Stormy Daniels was literally paid money to not talk about this just a month before the election. And before that happened, she had done an interview with In Touch magazine in 2011. And that's where a lot of these details have now come out about her interaction with Donald Trump. So let me read some of that. Daniels sat for an interview with In Touch magazine in 2011, predating her non-disclosure agreement, where she discussed at length and in explicit detail her sexual encounter with the future president. In Touch said Daniels took and passed a polygraph test, and the magazine also corroborated the actress's story with some of Daniels' friends. Okay, so finally, let me get to some of the actual specific details about her experience, Stormy Daniels' experience, with Donald Trump. So here's the first one. He is obsessed with sharks, terrified of sharks. He was like, I donate to all these charities, and I would never donate to any charity that helps sharks. I hope all the sharks die, Daniels recalled. This is just weird. So, I guess whatever. I just wanted to include this just to... I mean, it's such a random, weird fact. Just to sort of, if there's any doubters out there that this didn't happen, this isn't the kind of detail you would include in, I don't know, a fake story about your affair with Donald Trump. This is something that, this affair absolutely happened. And the only reason that Daniels isn't out publicly talking about it is because of her agreement and the money she received. So, just in case you have any question about whether it happened or not, it happened. Now, let's get to some other stuff. He bragged about his daughter quite a bit, though. He was very proud of her, which is nice. He told me once that I was someone to be reckoned with, beautiful and smart, just like his daughter. So, that's gross. That's gross, but totally is in line with how Donald Trump has presented himself and his feelings about his daughter. So, I should have looked this up beforehand, but I think this quote, since this was done in 2011, this even predates when Trump really started to talk about or have weird quotes about him talking about his daughter.
Ivanka, What's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that
I'm not even sure what that means, but it's weird, and it's totally in line with what Stormy Daniels is saying here. So, this next quote is a little more specific about the actual sex that Stormy Daniels had with Donald Trump. So, if you're sensitive, then plug your ears. It was textbook generic. You know, it was one position. What would you expect someone his age to do? It wasn't bad, don't get me wrong. Okay, that's gross. In case you ever wanted to know what Trump was like in bed, now you have a better idea. At least it's, at least there's not much thought that you really have to put into this. This is, it is what it is. And yeah, so let's quickly forget about what I just talked about, and let's go to the last quote here that I want to read before I get to audience feedback, and that is about Melania Trump. Was she brought up during Stormy Daniels' interaction with him? Well, here's what she said. I mentioned her. I was like, yeah, what about your wife? He goes, oh, don't worry about her. Quickly change the subject, Daniels said. Okay, so, I guess Trump reacts to the question about his new wife and who just had his newborn child the way you would expect any rich man who just cheated on his new wife and their new child to react. This is also insane to me, but it's important to mention this because if you are a religious Trump supporter and happen to be watching this video, why? Why do you support this man? He clearly doesn't care about his own family. I mean, if family's still a thing for you, if you're still concerned about morals and judgment when it comes to how you treat your own wife and children, then I would expect this would matter to you. If it doesn't, then maybe question your faith and what you believe. I don't know. I'm just saying, because 8 out of 10 white evangelicals voted for Donald Trump. That's a lot of religious people to vote for somebody who is clearly, apart from the fact that he's not religious at all, also just a terrible person to his own wife and children. Now, let's get to some audience reaction here that I don't have in any real order, but I took a bunch of screenshots from some Twitter reaction. So let's just see what people thought. So I posed the question on Twitter, should we care about Trump's affair with a porn star? Give me your thoughts below, and I may include it in a future video. This one from Absolute Katie. This is tough because on one hand, it exposes the hypocrisy of moralism on the right. On the other hand, the right tends to absorb and wear the hypocrisy with pride, so it's not an effective tactic. As far as caring about the affair, I couldn't care less. Focus on policy. And that's pretty much how I feel. I think policy is what is most important. I just find it interesting how when someone on the right wing cheats who is supposed to be standing up for, family values, that it's not an issue. But whatever. It doesn't involve policy, and I get that, and that it's understandable why it really ultimately doesn't matter. Here's a response from Bookie Stompers. Puerto Rico, the FISA stuff, war in the Middle East, and his shady dealings with the Saudis are all way more important than porn stuff. Yep, can't really disagree there. From Pie Disliker. Only if there's hypocrisy involved. I don't think it's any different politically than his 2 divorces and 3 marriages, so there's really nothing new to the table. I actually think that's a really good point. So if you are a religious person and, something like divorce is an issue for you, this stuff had already happened. Donald Trump had already, been married 3 times, has kids with 3 different wives, which, by the way, just imagine that was Barack Obama. How would the right wing react to a black man who's a Democrat who has 3 different wives and kids from all 3 different wives. How would they react to that? Because it was never an issue with Trump. But you have to admit, if you're a right winger, it would have absolutely been an issue with Barack Obama. So this is from Rob Neese. It's a distraction at this point. We know he was a sleazebag already. I think people are just making a fuss because, as usual, we're stuck in the fallacy of, if Obama had done this, imagine what they'd have said. Yeah, I just touched on that, and that's exactly right. From, Bar Lowell, whatever his name is. The Republicans raised hell over Bill Clinton's infidelity, and it practically birthed Fox News. Yes, I think we should care. He's supposedly the president the evangelicals wanted. Let's make sure they know who they got. 3 more here. So this is from Time for a Dynamic Change. Yes, we should be, but only to the proportion and seriousness to his other high crimes and misdemeanors. Each separate violation, however serious/dangerous, or infraction, however minor/harmless, is a glimpse into his core character. And what we all see is loathsome. Yeah, so this kind of sums it up in terms of why maybe this hasn't caught on as big as other stories, because Trump has done worse things and, actions that actually affect people, like his strict stance with ICE on immigration, with people being deported who've been here for 30 years but are now being separated from their family because of the crackdown on immigration. Trump's affair 10 years ago doesn't really affect anybody personally. And because Trump has done things now that is affecting people personally, or their lives personally, then you can understand why this isn't really much of a story. Let's get to the last 2 from Ethan O'Mara. People, male, female, anything in between, shouldn't be ashamed for their sexual habits, as long as they're safe, consensual, and healthy. Can't disagree there. And the last one from Genevieve S. No, it makes the GOP claim of moral superiority hypocritical, but we should focus on policy. Yep, I agree. And that's why I did not put much thought into this video. But I did want to cover this because I found it so interesting that nobody cared. But I think it's clear nobody cares because Trump is doing much worse things. And even if he wasn't, ultimately, this affair from 10 years ago, as bad as it is for his personal life, doesn't really affect the rest of us.